Hello everybody, I'm back again for another video. It's been a while since I've done one where I sat down and just talked in front of the camera. I believe the last one was in February. That was the Instagram video. This one is going to be a little different. I'm not going to be whining about something today. I'm going to be talking about Apple, because I believe that Apple is about to enter a new era, a golden era, you could say. And there's two main reasons for that, so I'm going to go ahead and get into it. And the first one is if you've paid any sort of attention to Apple, specifically in the Mac category, you've probably noticed that Apple is now switching to using their own processors instead of Intel. So if you didn't know, I believe in around 2005, Apple announced that they were going to be switching from PowerPC chips to Intel in all of their computers. And the reason for this was, I believe the main one was that PowerPC just could not keep up with Intel when it came to efficiency and like performance per watt. They did their best, but they couldn't do it. So, and I'm sure that kind of was a blow to their ego, because if you watch those old presentations, especially like in the late 90s, early 2000s, Steve would always go on and on about how like the G4 and the G5 and all that would whoop Intel's ass, and that it eats Intel machines for lunch. And then they switched exclusively to them. So, but anyways, that was in 2005, and I believe in about a year or two, all the Macs had transitioned over to Intel, and that's kind of the same reason why now they're switching over to their own chips. Nothing is particularly wrong with the Intel chips, but Apple has been making their own chips for years, whether it's in iPhones, iPads, Apple TV, the iPod Touch, if that still exists, the Apple Watch. I'm pretty sure everything they make hardware-wise, they make their own chips outside of the Mac. And with the exception of like the Mac Pro, pretty much every Mac is designed to be like small or thin or light, quiet, whatever, in some way or another. And you can only really accomplish that. I mean, they did accomplish it with the Intel, but you can only, hit that max potential whenever you have something like Apple Silicon. My brain kind of just shut off for a second there. I don't believe the iPhone and iPad processors are called Apple Silicon, but it's the same type of processor they've been using in the mobile devices forever. And they're very powerful, and they're very, very power efficient because they've been doing it for like a decade now. So they know what they're doing. So I'm sure they just kind of had a light bulb moment, and were like, well, I mean, if we're just trying to make something that's efficient and quiet and blah, 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 all that, just put the stuff from the iPad in there. Like, okay. And now you got the M1. So that's kind of why they're transitioning over. They've already released 4 computers, I believe. November 2020, they released an updated model of the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini, I believe. It completely replaced... So the ones that they released, they were not redesigns. I'm pretty sure all 3 of those, it was the same sort of chassis and design as the previous versions. And the main reason they did that was to kind of showcase the potential of M1 and just give people a taste of what's coming up. But they didn't replace all of the MacBook Pros and the Mac Minis. They only replaced the base 13-inch model of the Pro with M1, and they only replaced the base whatever model of the Mac Mini. You can still actually buy an Intel MacBook Pro and Intel Mac Mini right now if you want, but I don't know why you would, because these M1 versions outperform the Intel versions. They're still selling for like $2,000. But anyways, so they updated the lower-end versions, and obviously there's going to be higher-end computers in the future as well, because they're updating everything to Apple Silicon. And reception has been great. Everyone seems to love these computers, including me. I don't have one yet. But Intel should be scared, because if you've seen the performance that they get, you can find Intel chips that are more powerful than the M1 for sure, especially like on the desktop side of things. But you're not going to find anything from Intel or AMD that is more efficient than these things. They're crazy, and especially in something like a laptop, that's what you need. These things are more than powerful enough for the vast majority of people. And I'm still talking about the lower end models here too. Once the new 16-inch and the new 14-inch MacBook Pros come out, those are supposed to be higher end versions. There's going to be trouble for everyone on Earth that is not Apple or an Apple customer. So that's the main thing. Obviously, silicon is a big, big change. But something else I've noticed, this part's going to be a little bit longer. They kind of connect together. So over like the past 6 years, I'd say, I've kind of noticed, because I've been following Apple and technology in general, but especially Apple for the longest time. I remember it's probably 6th grade when I really got interested into it, because that's when I got an iPad. We had to get iPads for school, so I got an iPad Air. And I was already I was interested in tech at the time, but getting that iPad, for some reason, it just intrigued me, and I looked more and more into it. And I was fascinated by it, but I kind of noticed, not in 6th grade, right away, but over the years, I've kind of come to realize, I don't think Apple really knew what they wanted to do for a while. I'd say it really started around 2015, maybe. The main thing I think of when I talk about this is that one MacBook. It wasn't MacBook Air Pro. It was just called the MacBook. And if you haven't seen it, you'd think then that would just be a cheap MacBook. It's good for most people. It's not focused on being ultra thin or ultra powerful like the Air or the Pro, but it's a MacBook, and you would be very, very wrong, because for some reason this MacBook, it was thinner and lighter than the MacBook Air, and the Air's whole thing is that it's super portable. Why would you so it was just as expensive as the MacBook Pro. And I mean, even though it was lighter than the Pro and the Air, it wasn't that much lighter. It's not like you need to go to the gym to carry around a 13-inch MacBook, And it was far less powerful than both, especially because they didn't even put a fan in it. And thermal throttling was very, very, very bad. The new MacBook Air actually doesn't have a fan, but obviously since it's using the M1, from what I've seen, it's almost a non-issue. It only really ever thermal throttles if you're doing consecutive hours of high intensity work, like you're rendering something. But if you're doing that, you probably got the Pro anyway. Getting off topic. So that MacBook, I could never figure out who it was for, and I don't think Apple figured it out either, because they got rid of it, and for good reason, because it was garbage. But so that's one. I remember when the Apple Watch first launched, it got cleared up pretty quick. But when it first came out, there was 3 different versions of the watch. There was the Sport, there was the normal version, and there was one, I think it's called the Edition. It was $1,000. Might have been more than that, I don't know. But they're all internally the same functionality. It was all the same for all of them. But it was just super confusing, and they all had different bodies. One was made of stainless steel. I don't know. It was just kind of a mess. I don't know. Those years, and one more last thing. The iPhone naming scheme. I'm not even going to try to explain this one, because I've tried twice. And the first time, I literally talked for 10 minutes and was getting aggravated because I could not explain it. It makes sense in my mind, but putting it into words, it just doesn't. It does not compute. So I'm just gonna put a picture here. There you go. So yeah, Apple was kind of a mess during that time, and they were really inconsistent. They went back and forth on what they wanted to update, what they didn't want to, and I wasn't worried. I mean, first of all, it's a company. I don't care if they live or die, but they have a lot of money too. But I was just confused. What are they doing? And the main reason I think behind that is because I believe it was late 2011 when Steve Jobs stepped down from CEO, and then shortly after he passed away. Obviously, after he was gone, there were still some projects left behind at Apple that he was involved with, and they spent some time finishing those. I believe the Retina MacBook Pro was one. The iPhone 5 was one of them, because that released less than a year after he died. I believe the last project to launch that Steve was involved with was the Apple Watch. That came out years after he had died, so most of that they had to do themselves. I guess that's why the launch was kind of confusing. Anyway, so yeah, they had some time to think about what their next direction was, because obviously Steve was the mastermind behind Apple. He saved them. After he got fired, I believe it was in the early 90s when he left, Apple went on without him, and it was a huge mess. They were doing all sorts of weird stuff. They were licensing Mac OS 9 to multiple different companies to put on their own computers. There was a point in time where there were Macs that were not by Apple. It was so weird. But and they were not successful at all. So Steve came back in the late 90s, and he brought Next with him and all the technology. and he brought him back, especially because of the iMac. Everything from that point on, you know, it was his work. Steve was the one that saved Apple. He's the one that made him, and they had lost him. So I'm sure they were kind of in a panic. We don't want this to be the mid-90s again. But I guess during that time period where Steve was gone, but they still had stuff to finish up that he had directed, they didn't come up with anything because come 2015, like I said, I usually consider that to be like the low point in time for Apple. It was just kind of a mess. But things have got better slowly, and especially recently, Apple. I'd already say that they've kind of started this new era, but something I kind of noticed was it was when they announced the 24-inch iMac. It was like 3 weeks ago or something like that. Maybe it was a month. It was a replacement for the 21.5-inch iMac from before, and
A few moments later.
anyways, when I saw that, obviously those new iMacs are, a callback to the original iMac that came in all those different colors. And, everyone was fascinated by that. And obviously that's what it is. But I think that it's a little bit deeper than that, actually. I think it's kind of a sign of what Apple's new product strategy is going to be, their game plan. It's not like it's something hidden. They've actually already been doing it for a while. So I keep bringing up the late 90s, but if you've seen any of the Macworld presentations from back then, Steve he brought up during the keynote that he wanted to showcase their new product line, their new strategy, and he showed like a Punnett square, and he said that they had 2 form factors and 2 demographics, and those would be desktop and laptop, and consumer and professional, and obviously he was just talking about the Mac at the time, but I think that's what Apple is going back to. It's not that I think. It's already pretty, they've already released products, within that same sort of strategy. I think they kind of realized, that plan worked back then. Why don't we just go back to that now? So, and it's for more than just the Macs, too. One example that's pretty obvious today, the iPhone 12. Now, obviously, there's not like a desktop and a laptop version of the iPhone 12. It's just a phone. But they have a consumer version, the iPhone 12 and 12 mini, and the Pro version, the iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. I mean, there's not really a lot to talk about. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, the Pro is the Pro version. But there's a lot of similarities. Like, for example, the consumer Macs back in the good old days, they were usually, at least for a while, they had bright colors. The iMac and the iBook, they had like blue, green, like a pinkish sort of strawberry color. I think they named them after fruits, actually. It was pretty funny. They had all these bright colors, and it was welcoming, and it was fun, and all that. And then the Pro computers were usually more, like if you went into NASA and you saw like a green iMac, you'd probably, you'd raise some eyebrows. But so they looked more like standard high-grade computers, and that's kind of visible today, not only in the iPhone, but the iPad. Now the iMac, there's a few different things. So like, for example, the iPhone 12, it's the consumer phone, I guess. It works for the vast majority of people, and it's great. And it comes in all these colors. I have an iPhone 12. That's what I'm recording this with. It's the red version. They said it's red. It's really more of a pink to me. But regardless, it's beautiful. I like it. It looks like candy. But so that's the color scheme for the iPhone 12, and then the 12 Pro is more like subtle, like mature colors. Like they have like the silver and the graphite, gold, and I think the other one is navy blue, I believe. And it's not even just the colors. I think the finish on the back for the 12 Pro is like I don't know what the word is. It's like frosted glass, not frosted glass. Some sort of glass that has kind of like a matte feel to it, and the 12 is just kind of glossy. So you can definitely tell from the aesthetic that there's a big difference. Same with the iMac. They have not revealed an Apple Silicon 27-inch iMac yet, which is generally considered the more pro version of the iMac. But I'm pretty confident that it's not going to come in like red, blue, and purple and all that like the new 24-inch iMac does. And like I said before, you can see the difference. The 24-inch, the more consumer-oriented one, has all these colors. It has the white bezels in the front. And I'm sure that this new one that's coming out will look kind of similar to the the iMac Pro or something like that. I'm only going to talk about one more of these because I'm kind of just repeating myself at this point, but the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. There's also the normal iPad, but that's just more, Apple doesn't really talk about that one much. The Air, obviously, is the consumer version. Super thin, great battery life. It's the colors. It still has the silver and the space gray like the Pro, but it also has like the mint green and like the sky blue because it's the Air, and it has gold too. And obviously the Pro, it has, I don't know if the finish is different on the back, but it's got the silver and the space gray. So at least, in the aesthetic, you can tell that they're kind of going with a similar style as how they used to. But for the most part, not only the aesthetic, but just the product lines in general. For the MacBook, there's the Air and the Pro. The Air is obviously the consumer version. The Pro, you can probably figure that one out. For the iMac, consumer is 24-inch. Pro is the 27-inch. The Mac Mini, there's actually rumors that they're making a higher-end version of the Mac Mini with Apple Silicon. So I guess, because they've used a space gray chassis. Sorry, my little sister yell. For the Mac Mini, right now they have the, I believe it's $599, $699, somewhere around there. The current Mac Mini is pretty consumer-oriented. It's powerful, it's really powerful, but, you're probably not going to do it if you work at, like, Sony Pictures or something like that, or like some rendering station. I don't know. So they're going to have a Mac Mini and a Mac Mini Pro. I don't know what it would be called, but 2 Mac Minis, consumer, Pro. And there's probably like 3. I can't even remember which ones I've said so far, because it's pretty much every product line at this point, except maybe the Apple Watch and the Apple TV, but there's not like it's not a Pro Watch and TV. Well, anyway, so yeah. It seems like they've kind of ironed out, a lot of the problems, because especially like in the mid 2010s, it was just completely unpredictable what they were going to do. Especially when that new MacBook came out, I couldn't figure out who it was for. It seemed pointless. It was pointless, but people have a pretty good idea on what Apple's doing. It seems like Apple, they've figured things out and they know where to go, and I think this is the best time out of any for them to refine their strategy on what they want to make, especially with Apple Silicon, because interest in Macs are at an all-time, well, not all-time high probably, but in a long time, the Mac has received more positive feedback than, a while. And obviously, making a new product line for pretty much everything, they've refreshed a lot. I don't know. It's kind of hard to think about it, because even though, it seems like they're fixing most of the issues now, it wasn't until like a few years ago that there was some light at the end of the tunnel. So I wrote like a huge, not a script, but I wrote like a huge document on like what to talk about for this, and I kind of stopped looking at it. I'm just ranting at this point. But anyways, I think the future looks good for Apple, and I might make more videos about individual sections. Like I kind of want to talk about that new MacBook Pro, because I'm going to college later this year, and I have a I have a MacBook Pro right now, and it's served me great, and I don't need a new one for school, but my desktop that I built in 7th grade died about a month ago, and I've spent about 8 hours troubleshooting it. I cannot fix it, so I'll probably build a new desktop too, but I kind of want to get a powerful Mac, because these new MacBook Pros, I guess I can make another video on it later, but these new redesigns for the Pros, they look so good. But anyways, I'm kind of rambling at this point. I kind of forgot what I'm going on about, to be honest. What was it? I don't know. Anyways, things are looking great for Apple. I'm excited to see what's going to come up, because obviously I'm a pretty big Apple guy. I don't consider myself a fanboy, but I mean, I have a MacBook and an Apple Watch and an iPhone, so I definitely have a place in my heart for them, I guess. But I guess that's about it. I don't know if there's anything I missed. If so, I'll add it in the end, but I believe that's about all I wanted to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think I want to make more sort of tech videos like this, because technology, especially like like consumer products like Apple and stuff like that, I'm really passionate about that stuff, and I enjoy talking about it, even if not many people care, at least to watch my videos. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it's not too long, but anyways, that's about it. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.